Okay. So, welcome to the first ever Data and AI podcast. From now on, you may expect us every second Tuesday at 18 o'clock set Belgrade time with some interesting, hot and pure data and AI podcasts. And if you ask yourself why pure, how do you mean why pure? Because it's perfectly understandable, revolutionary, pure and data and AI podcast. Important note is that we are unsullied by sponsors since yesterday, so yes, we may say that we are 100% independent. Today, with us, we have Sray Agarwal, AI and ML expert at Policy Sapiens. Together, we will talk about what is the influence of ethical AI on our life. We will cover topics such as how AI has influenced our daily life, why is bias present in AI algorithms, and what are the possible negative and positive consequences on bias in society. Concept of the show is designed in that way that we are actively encouraging our public to participate in this podcast and to put us right in a hot chair with some tricky questions. So let us begin. Sray, your base of operation is UK, if I understand correctly. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the first question is, how did you enter the world of ethical AI? Perhaps if you can just share with us in 1 minute your story.
Yeah, so entering the world of ethical AI is a gradual process. So I was always into data science and AI, and I saw there is less trust, especially in financial services when it comes to AI, because most of the data science or models which we were making were black box and were not easily explainable. And there came in explainability that we need to have explainable AI. And then came in that, oh yeah, so then came in a lot of news about privacy and discrimination using AI, be it the face recognition algorithm or job search algorithm or recruitment algorithms which were exposed that they were discriminating against a particular gender or a race or a nationality. And that is where my interest came in. And then I started talking to my clients and they were like, yeah, this is one of the most important things which we would like to implement when we talk about AI models.
Okay, I totally agree with you on that. Like, we can see, and we'll talk about it a bit later about inequality that is present, especially like I said in gender equality, basically. And it's very important to talk about this thing and to do something, not only talk, but to do something which is more than just talking. Like basically, because I believe that this is something that where society, and we do believe from Data Science Conference that this is where society should go in the future. So I will start with the first round of questions, and we will start the poll. We will also do this poll after we share a podcast link to all of our community, which is more than 3,500 people in whole. So first question for me is, what do you think is the biggest impact of AI and that impact of AI had on our daily lives, and the one that we may see and maybe the one that we may not notice at all, for example?
Absolutely. So there are lots. The first impact of AI is what we are doing right now. So when we are live on Facebook or when you watch this podcast on YouTube, you'll find other recommendations which are similar to this podcast. So that's AI. When you go to Netflix and look for a movie and you are recommended other movies or TV series, that's AI. When you go to Amazon and order a book, that's again AI. So when you like my video or like this podcast, you would be sent notification about similar other podcasts, which is again AI. So these are visible things of AI, right?
May I just ask you one question, because I can hear a lot of people complaining about it sometimes, that they say, okay, there is too much like of this happening right now. You know, maybe I wouldn't like to have everything recommended to me. Yeah. What is your? Do you have some similar like saying in your company, in your like circle of people, maybe also?
Absolutely. So people say that I don't want a recommendation, right? Yeah. Great, if you don't want a recommendation, you can go and search it yourself. But given that the kind of content you have, you go to Netflix, you don't even know what exists. So if there's no recommendation, you do not know what even to search. I do understand sometimes it get overboard and you have a lot of content coming in, lot of recommendation popping up and popping out. And that is where company needs to draw a line where they need to ask the user that do you want a automated AI recommendation or assistant or not? If they say yes, show it to them. If they say no, leave it to their own world and let them search whatever they feel like. Second thing again is when you talk about visible things, there are a lot of invisible AI in your life. For example, when you go and apply for a job, right? You never know is an AI shortlisting your resume or is it human being doing the shortlisting. Number two, if you apply for a mortgage, you don't even know who is calculating your credit score. Is it human doing it or an AI doing it?
Yeah.
You apply to universities. You these days university take your essay and put it under a computer, and computer find out that it is an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. So you don't even know that is somebody reading it or not. You apply for an insurance, you get it or not get it. Again, you don't even know who is doing it. Is it an AI or a human, or it's a combination of human and AI? So there are a lot of things which we see and we say that we don't want, but then they are philosopher of things which we don't even know that who is taking decision, and probably a machine is doing it, and machine is even
Yeah.
rejecting your applications despite you be an being an eligible candidate.
Yeah, and I believe when you say about these examples, basically, and that's something that we are seeing all the time, and we are doing that all the time. But maybe we don't really think about it. Maybe AI behind it. And basically, when we are speaking, my feeling is when we are speaking about ethical AI, maybe that one that we are not sure if its use actually non-seeable, it's much important to be ethical than maybe the one that we are seeing that is ethical, because the consequences of it can be much higher because we don't have a conscience about it. But before we jump to that topic, I would like to think, what do you think is AI changing the way we are living too rapidly? And do you believe the humans can adapt fast enough to accept, understand? Maybe the most important keywords here is understand what is happening around us.
Too tough. So say there are two things. First thing, humans do not want AI to interfere in their daily life. But when you go to Google and type something, and if it does not return a perfect result, then you say, hey, this is not good. And in the second, on the other hand, you do not want Google to take your data and, make the algorithm better. So, it is very complicated. So we understanding what is happening, how AI takes decision is not easy. But is it required? Yes and no. It is required by people who make it, people who are directly affected, but it is not required to be understandable by everything. It's as simple as that. You have your mobile phone. You do not need to understand how does a mobile phone work, right? What happens when you press a key or when you dial a number. But the regulators who gives that mobile phone license need to understand what is happening. So there has to be a body who understands and who acts as a person who understands and gives permission to the service provider to reach the end consumer. So that's very important. I and you may want to understand. End consumer may not want to understand. And if you want to understand, make it available on public platforms. If I want to understand how this laptop works, make it available on YouTube or public platform. I can Google, go to the website and look. And if I don't want, I'm happy with it, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, but when you spoke about that, we can agree. I suppose we can agree that solving a laptop let's say, fixing a laptop cannot be defined as some big society or big problem that somebody has. Okay, it's working, not working. Okay, if you have something very important, laptop is not working, that can be a huge problem.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest. But what big social problem or society issue maybe it couldn't be solved without AI? Some of your view of this on this matter, perhaps.
So see, AI is artificial intelligence. So AI is nothing but what humans can do is being done by machines today. So
Yeah.
whatever human can do or whatever machine can do can be done by human. The only difference is the scale. A human would take, say, 7 hours to look at your X-ray or MRI report and say that do you have a cancer or not. And in that 7 hour, AI can look into 700,000 X-rays and MRI report and say that
Yeah.
these people have cancer now. That's the only difference. It does not mean that what AI can do, human can't do. It's about the time taken, the accuracy, and the scale at which you want, at which AI is doing. Having said that, it does not mean that when I go to a doctor, say a robotic doctor who is a robot, and I say that this is my MRI report, tell me, do I have a cancer or not? And he say, yes, you have. And when I ask him or the robot, then how can you say that I have cancer? A doctor would explain me because of this reason, you ate this, you did this, you were exposed to this is how it is. And he will also give that human touch. A machine would not, right? So I do not want a machine to be 100% accurate, but 0% explainable.
Yeah.
I want it to be 100% accurate, but even if I want it to be 90% accurate and 90% explainable, right?
Okay.
Because if it is affecting me, I need to know why. So we are human. We are made curious by nature.
So if I can ask you, so basically, if I can understand quite good, is that you're basically the one of the let's say the stream of the advocates of human in the loop AI usability, perhaps, or what's your stand on human in the loop? Basically, that's something that, what does it mean? That means that AI will give us some kind of answers, some part of the answer or more than one answer, and it will give us explainability. Why did he choose? And in the end, the decision should remain on the human, like in the end. So basically, what's your stand on that matter?
Two things. Number one, sometime it has to give me an option of options of result, and I choose.
Okay.
Sometimes it is not required, right? So, for example, a recommendation not on Netflix, you don't need a human intervention because even if it gives me a wrong recommendation, it does not affect my life much, right? Or a Google search, if it gives me a wrong result, I can use and I can again search. But if it is about my financial decision, which impact my life, my family, my health, my finance, that is where I want a human intervention. That is, a human should have a ability to switch off the AI system, right?
Yeah,
Everywhere
basically.
else, it does not matter, right? If it causes any hazard to my life or it causes an irreversible change in my life, that is where it matters.
Okay, we have a question which is a very, let's say, interesting question. Do you think that we should somehow define robots right? The way the robots will be treated one day, and when is the right time to think about that, if not now, should we control human abuse of robots?
Absolutely. So, a very, very interesting thing. So, human abuse of robots is needs to be, needs to be have a checks and balances the way robots abusing humans, right? So,
Yeah.
if human get an ability to abuse robots right now, and they are learning from humans, we need to understand that tomorrow they will abuse humans in the same way, right? So
That's interesting. That's interesting thought, to be honest. Like, I didn't think about it, but when you see about that, like, because you're especially the types of learning, let's say,
again,
transfer learning.
they don't have their own intelligence. They learn from what they are taught, and they are taught what we do. So robots don't have perspective. We have perspective, and we. So, for example, why would a woman not get a job is not decided by robots. It has been decided by human. Human feed that information to robot, and robot do it at a scale, right? So is as simple as that. If we abuse a machine, machine would learn to abuse us. Of course, there has to be regulatory bodies. It's very, very simple. It's very, very simple. You need to have regulations in place and tight regulation. So, for example, cybercrime laws did not exist when crime started happening using computers and internet. And then now, I guess almost all countries have very strict guidelines on cybercrime. Similarly, regulation needs to be there for AI abuse. That right now it is not very evident. It's not coming up in public, and that is why there is no law. But there has to be a law very, very soon. There has to be a AI regulation law, which are not only criminal but also social, but also economical and financial, everything. And that
Yeah.
is where you'll be able to strike the right balance.
Yeah, basically, when we talk about that, well, my personal approach to this question is not only this question, but every question is, before we think about regulating, we need to ask ourselves why something happening, what is the reason behind it? Because basically, I really do believe that in the nature, all humans are good. That's my personal approach, and everybody, most of the people laugh at me. But in the end, I really think that nobody is doing something in the pure, let's say, some evil manner, because people make mistakes because they don't understand that it is a mistake, basically. And that's why when I talk about that, I think it's very important to understand what is the behind the curtain and why something happening. And basically that's how we are coming to the second topic we are going to talk today, and that is, why is bias present in AI and how to detect bias. We have one interesting question in the poll which will be shared, and like I said before, we'll also share in the podcast this question, so we can see how people are reacting. We'll publish these results. So first question for you, and I think it's important to understand the basics of it, and that is, what is bias in AI? And personally, I think that maybe will be the best thing to give us a few examples of bias in AI, so we can understand what is bias and what is not biased.
Absolutely. So bias in AI is nothing but what human used to do for two people is being done for 100. I'll give you a simple example. So you must have recently, a couple of weeks back, I was looking at LinkedIn that somebody used a algorithm which converts a low-res image to a high-resolution image, and he gave that algorithm Barack Obama's image.
Yeah.
Right? And when it was converted to a high-res image, Barack Obama's image was converted to more like an American feature with white skin tone. Right. Now, why was that done? Because I guess most of the data on which the algorithm was trained probably was on white male, white American male.
If we can just stop on this only for a few seconds, because I also know one question. I was speaking with Marcus Schatten. He's basically the chief of cathedra for AI and computer vision on Faculty of Information in Warazin. And what he told me about that, they basically had a problem to explain to the, let's say, community why they need to have like let's say almost the same sample of the let's say people of different colors, if they want to have a good image recognition, because let's say NGO activists were very like not keen about that, because it goes into the racial things also. And sometimes I think that also that can be, I don't know what is your stand about that, but I think that can also be a bad, not bad thing, but that can be a problem when developing such a resolution like this. Basically, I understand that they took mostly like the white man and put it inside that, but this also part of the equation can be a problematic in the developing of image recognition also, like, so I don't know what.
So see, image recognition is a very small area where bias is there,
Yeah.
because that is where it is visible. Because you put an image, you come to know, and it's very visible. But then there are thousands of areas where bias is there, which is not even, which is still untapped, which we don't even have realized that there is a bias. And the bias, so for example, when we talk about images, so maybe there are more white images in the image recognition algorithm on which machine has been trained, and less non-white images, right?
Yeah.
So what can be done? Do you expect people to go and collect those images? Probably yes. And if they can't, then penalize machine whenever they make a mistake with that lower represented data, right? And or maybe artificially create more of that lower represented data. I'll give you a simple example. What a bias? For example, if machine learning algorithm is 90% accurate in a decision, it is acceptable. But if it is found that it is 95% accurate for male and 70% for female, now that is a bias, right? So what do you do? It's very simple, not very simple, but one way is you take all the data, you tell machines that if you make a mistake for a woman candidate I'll penalize you twice or thrice or X number of times than what you make a mistake for men. So what would happen? The mistake made by machine for a lower represented group would be less compared to, or would be similar compared to what it is making for a majority represented group. And that's very important. Because I've seen people, if it is a 90% accurate model, it goes into production without looking into that what is the breakup for male, female, married, unmarried, people with a particular race and people with other race. We don't even deep dive into it. So it's very important. And that needs to be done in the first stage, where you need to mention that we need to check A, B, C, D, E. We need to check this sensitive features and see, is there any kind of bias or not.
And basically, I know about the example of bias in AI when in the Afro-Americans, basically, when and basically in US, people don't understand, but most of the things that can be used AI, it's already in use. Basically, they are far advanced in this part of the field. Basically, in let's say the a juvenile sector, or also like prisons, when somebody the sentence and when somebody needs to be on a parole, if you're Afro-American, basically because of the data we were trained, the chance for you to get released is like 70% lower than if you're Caucasian American, basically. And that's also, like, I think, very, very important example also of bias in AI, because the training set was it wasn't good, basically, to show like racial discrimination, which is for sure understandable, one of the biggest problems right now in America besides coronavirus, because that's the whole world problem. But basically, may I ask you to give you an answer in one sentence? I think it's important to understand why do you believe bias is present in AI? In one sentence, if that's possible.
Bias is present in AI because bias is present in society.
Okay, I was hoping to get this kind of answer, but lucky it was the good answer then. But I think that is important thing to talk about it. That we understand that if AI make mistakes sometimes, and basically that's okay after we train them, etc. That we need to understand that bias and something like that is already present in human nature. And if it's present in human nature, we cannot expect without having some interventions. And we will talk about that in this next question. That and first, like how to address this problem. So basically, being said that, what techniques are you using to detect bias in AI? Because sometimes it's very easy to detect it, but sometimes it's not that easy to see if something's biased or not. So if you can share with us some of your experience with that.
So there are multiple techniques. So as we say that one solution does not fit all, right? So depend upon use case to use case, what kind of problem we are looking. We need to understand, are we looking at optimizing false positive or false negative? Which is more expensive for us? Is it more important to have lesser false positive or lesser false negative? And using that, there are multiple matrices which we may implement, something like equalized odds, equal opportunity, average odd ratios, statistical parity, demographic parity. So almost all of these try to strike a balance between two groups. Now the balance can be between accuracy, that both the group have same accuracy, or true positive rate, both the group should have true positive rate, which should be same, or false true negative rate, or false negative rate, or ratio of true positive to false negative. So again, depend upon what kind of use case you are having and what is more expensive. Is making a false positive more expensive or having more false negative more expensive? Depending upon those, you may choose one of this metric, or you can even come out with your own metric. For example, a cost metric, right? You multiply false positive with a dollar value and a false negative with a dollar value and see which is more expensive for you, because at the end of the day, it's business and people would like to make money. So you may want to multiply false positive and false negative with an actual dollar, pound, or euro value and see what is the actual monetary number, because when you take that approach to the board, they will ask how much will I be impacted in dollars numbers. Right? So it's very important to have those kind of numbers to have a buy-in from the stakeholders.
And being said, okay, I understand that there's various techniques, but also we spoke about that in some previous sessions, and when we had a call between you and me. And I think it's very interesting to understand this thing. And maybe if you can give us on some concrete example, you can mention names, or you don't need if there's problem, if you don't have some clearance from your company. But can you describe us more into details how it looks like a project development that has involved the ethical AI component?
Okay, so in simple example I'll give, which is applicable everywhere, mortgage. So a lot of time, single mothers are not given mortgage because they are single
I didn't
mother,
know that.
and compared to married women or single father, single mothers are denied mortgage, and that is why, because in the data, when human used to take decisions, they used to always deny loans or mortgage to single mothers or single parents in that case. And that is where we need to understand, we need to first look into the data and understand who is represented less historically. So you take the entire data, take the decision for the bad decision or the negative decision. Here is loan being denied. Take that decision, see who are being targeted or who has been who has been made victimized here. Take that, try to create a model which does not do the same. If somebody deserve a loan or mortgage, we need to give that person a mortgage. It's very simple. So if I, as Sray Agarwal, being men and married, apply for a loan, get a loan, what if you change my gender, make it female, and make me unmarried? Will I get the loan or not? If I do not get a loan, then there's a problem with that, because you just changed my gender and my marital status, right?
Yeah,
And the
basically,
decision changes, which should not
yeah,
happen.
yeah, basically, like it's not hard enough to raise a child. But I don't know, like nevertheless, if you're male or female, but you can
Absolutely.
also not get a mortgage
Yeah,
because you're
yeah,
underrepresented in the
absolutely. So
statistics.
everything staying constant, and if you change my demographic, I should not be denied what I was given
Yeah.
in the first place.
Yeah, this sounds like reasonable thing, like, and I didn't think about it, but yeah, that's like statistically, like you're saying, that could be a real problem being
Yeah.
on, like, and basically, with this being said, we are moving to the third part of our pure podcast part, which is like this was perfect introduction to the part of what are the possible negative or positive influence of ethical AI on society development. So like I said, we'll also raise one poll that we will share after we this podcast with all of our public, so we can see how the public react and what is the thing, what is the opinion of the public regarding this matter. So the first thing I would like to ask you, what is your stance on the topic of ethical AI? And basically that means what is an ethical AI for you? What does it mean to you?
Okay. So ethical AI is a term which consists of multiple things. We talk about data privacy, that your data should not get leaked, right? We talk about explainability, that the model should be explainable and transparent. And when I say explainability, in a very layman terms, not mathematical equation, right? It should be about bias, that the model should not discriminate between two groups based on their color, gender, race, nationality,
Yeah.
or maybe other thing like having a house or not having a house. And fourth thing is accountability. A model should be able to tell you that, hey, I am not right now. So that is, a model should raise an alarm when the model thinks that the result which it is giving to you is not perfect, right? So for example, which I call model monitoring. So you should be able to, there should be a mechanism where you're able to have an alert that now the model is becoming stale, that the model is no more apt for what it was developed for. So these are few things which I say ethical AI should consist of. However, the universe is large, so the definition of ethical AI would not get constrained into this 4 or 5 things, but should be more than that. But these are the most 4 or 5 fundamental things which I feel should be part of ethical AI and other.
I think this will be very valuable, and I can say, man, that we will use this as a promotion, like a part of the promotional video when we move forward with promoting ethical AI and popularize it for the conference. But because I think it's a perfect, like, 5 things you think that believe that they are very important. And being said about ethical AI, what is your stand on the topic of facial recognition? Why I'm asking this? Because I think that this has become major topic when we talk about misuse of the technology. Maybe you're also comment about that. Why do you think this is like one example of major misuse of technology right now?
Depends. Why are you using facial recognition? Are you using it for learning deep learning? So if I want to learn how to implement deep learning using facial recognition algorithm, good, no issues. If I want to play with it and have fun with it, not a problem. But if I use it for some decision making, like financial crime, right? For example, if I want to put a low resolution picture of somebody and find out is that person, what would be the high resolution image of that person, and if it matches with some other person who was not actually in that low resolution picture, then it's a problem. If I'm using it for creating some decision, then it is an issue. If it is for just academic purpose, I don't mind, right? It's okay, because academically you need to know what are the pros and cons. You need to know that it can be biased, and the person who is learning needs to also put in effort to improve it, to make it lesser biased and less
Yeah.
discriminatory. But if it is being implemented for some decision which is again non-reversible, which will create some important changes in your life, like prison sentences, like financial crime, or something, some voting IDs, or getting admission somewhere, or uh, traffic navigations, traffic rules violation, then that is a problem out there. If it creates an issue, but if it is only for learning or improving, it's okay, as long as the person who is doing it knows that there is a problem with this algorithm and this algorithm is discriminatory. So the result which I see would be discriminatory, and he makes an effort to either raise or make it a point the result which is developed or been executed by this model may be
Yeah.
discriminatory. So
And
you need to call it
yeah.
out. Yeah.
And basically, if you could just say, if you could say just yes or no, basically, like I said, are you against or for further development of facial recognition technology?
I'm all
Personally,
for it. Yes, I'm for it. There's no harm in doing it.
okay.
Again, as long as you call out that it is discriminatory and it
Yeah.
can have problem.
Basically, what I see that there is a little bit of problem because of the China has maybe a bit far, maybe they get better results than the rest of the world, and basically it can be a problem. It can be misused, to be honest. And I think that in the end, when we are talking about AI, and basically why is ethical AI also important, is about that mistrust that doesn't it isn't in the, let's say, human nature, unfortunately, because I think that the whole life will be much easier if we just believe to each other, like without having mistrust. But that's, like I said, my philosophy. And one question from the public also: what about ethics in terms of application of AI? Example given: using data to manipulate masses in the famous USA election example.
Again, that's again wrong, because it's a life-altering decision. Why? Because at the end of the day, we are not showing the right picture. It will impact the government which will come to the power. It will impact the voting decision of human beings. Thus, it will impact the government which comes into power, and thus it will impact the decision they take. So it's again, and the decision they take would be taken. You can't reverse that decision, right? If they increase the taxes right now by 100%, you have already paid the taxes. It is irreversible. Nobody would come and say, okay, we are going to refund the extra taxes which you have paid. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
basically,
these are life-altering decisions. So it should
yeah,
not happen.
I agree on that, but just to be like say 100% clear, and I had the chance to speak with Mihailo Popescu, who was a science director of research of Cambridge Analytica, and basically what he said to me that the guy who owned the place and that he was doing a far better marketing of the product that they could do. That basically what they said to him is in the best case scenario they can have a 50% chance of influence in something because like let's say technology algorithms behind it to manipulate the masses is not that developed, and basically the psychology is not verified by itself. So basically you cannot have like false positive, false negative cases because you're not sure. But in the end, when somebody goes in the public pool and just vote, you cannot be 100% sure what he did because you don't have camera there to see what he. And basically it's important to understand there is also limitation of AI, but also maybe a good topic we didn't think about to talk about it, but maybe if saying that something AI can do which cannot be do, is it ethical at all? For sure it's harming the technology itself and the whole industry, but is it that ethical opinion? Should we somehow maybe also regulate that part? Okay, one thing is overselling, but overselling like on the, I don't know, on exponential, that can be a problem. We can see with this example of US election, because everybody now think that somebody can just use it and turn on or off how you would vote, and that's basically, it's not the truth. In let's say maybe not 100% sure, not 80%, not 70%, 60, 50, but it maybe one part can be, but it's very, very low part. And we have also one interesting question, and I would like to ask you this, and it made me wonder, like, to think about also, and it's, if AI did something that is being regarded as a crime, who do you think should be charged? Humans, AI, or both?
Okay, so if AI does a crime, AI cannot be charged. Of course, you can say that, okay, destroy this algorithm, done. But will that stop others from developing that algorithm? No. So what is the main aim of punishment? The main aim of punishment is just not punishing that people, but setting an example to others that if you do something wrong, this is going to happen with you, right? So punishing an autonomous car or taking it to scrapyard and scraping it would not change something, right? So it is very important to also punish the person who is responsible for it.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Number one, did he know about the problem? If yes, and did he hide the problem? If yes, he should be punished. So for example, if I develop a self-driving car and I know that every 20 hours or every 40 hours, it will go and kill somebody, but I didn't say it to anybody, I am into trouble, right? I should be punished. But if I didn't knew, number one, why didn't I know? Didn't I do proper checks? Didn't I implement right checks and balances? If yes, I did, I should be again punished. It's more like healthcare. If you take a medicine and if something happens to somebody, do you punish the medicine or the manufacturer? Of course, the manufacturer. You ban the medicine, but you also punish the manufacturer. So it is not the product which gets punished. It's the production which gets punished. So it's very important to punish the product.
It sounds very reasonable what you're saying.
Yeah.
It sounds very reasonable what you're saying. Basically, what crossed my mind, what I was thinking about it, basically the crime from without, let's say, intention to commit a crime, it's also a crime. So basically, I think it really depends on the what type of crime. If somebody, it's like let's say it's life-ending crime, that can be very debatable. And I think that very personally right now our law is not defined about that. But if you're gonna make a parallel, my opinion of course for that, if you're gonna make a parallel, that should also be punished. And basically, but that can also influence, when I'm talking, the second thing is that can influence a lot, let's say, fear among developers of AI, because they can start thinking about it, okay, I will not do something that can, in the end, if I do everything right and some part of the engine failed, for example, in airplanes, like because there was like that famous example when the miscode of some company, which was like I don't know, Airbus, I think it's for example, they had like 200 people killed. And who was it responsible? The programmer of the company. In the end, of course, the company was responsible because they should have a check it, because somebody who's programming cannot be responsible, even if he's doing the bad job. Because most of the time, also, what is the problem? Most of the time, people who are programming, they're programming the part of the code, and they don't understand the full picture. Basically, somebody who is implementing, I think that we are talking about the crimes and what can be, who should be punished. In the end, somebody who is in the end, let's say, somebody who is putting the product in the use. If you or the programmer is putting the program in the use, okay, fine, I'm for it. It's also because you have a responsibility. That's your product, it's your company, etc. But in the end, it's like common, let's say, responsibilities. I think that it will do much more harm than it can do good in the terms of developing the technology. And basically, also, this is a good intro to my question is, how may organization implement principles that may be the foundation for developing ethical AI?
Right. So you're right. So, the first thing is, how many, we don't know the numbers, but are people doing it? Yes. So people are understanding, realizing, and doing it gradually. So I'll not say they are not doing it. They are doing it. People have started understanding the importance of it, and people have started understanding the value of it. So people have started doing it, right? So, but how many, we do not know the numbers. Is it a lot of companies? No, not a lot of companies. People have started doing it very recently. So it will take time. I guess industry will take some couple of years before it becomes a norm or a culture, but it will happen gradually.
Okay, that's a good answer. But do you have maybe let's say one let's say advice maybe for some organization that is not using at all principles of ethical AI, and they would like to start? Where should they? What should be the beginning of it? Let's say the first step or the zero step for that.
The step zero is first educate people inside your company that it is important.
Okay.
Second step would be make a framework. It's just like you have a policy, right? For everything, you have a process. Make a process. That needs to be followed. Without this, you will not make you step forward. That is, there has to be checks. There has to be a floodgate. Make floodgate and educate people. If you make floodgate, educate people, things will be all right. So, for example, as simple as that, we are working from home. So, what is the education that we need to log in at a particular time, log off at a particular time? We need to respect few norms, create that norms. People may not follow day 1, day 2, day 3, but eventually they will. It will become a part of life. For example, wearing a seat belts. So when seat belts was introduced, people did not. But then regularly and slowly, when people saw the pros and cons, they started wearing seat belts, right? So those are the things. It will happen. We need to make it a process, educate people, make them aware. It will happen.
Like the one, let's say, correlation, or let's say parallel with that is like using the mask in the public. In the first place, people didn't, because of Corona, didn't use mask. But right now, I was like doing today, I was running the public transport, and basically in like 3 different buses, 100% of the people were wearing masks. So basically, it needs to pass a time for people to adopt this cultural change. And we don't need, like I said, I think that should be a soft touch in that terms. We shouldn't, okay, if it's life threatening also, like, okay, there is examples, but I think that if a person and people willingly accept this as something that should be done and understand why it should be done, like I said, the first part is education. Then it's much easier to do so. If you just put something that should be used and you don't educate people on the first place, I think that it can create, let's say, bad influence, and people will think, okay, I did something that somebody want just to do, and why did he want to do this? And basically, I think that, like I said, that the 0 step should be education in the end. And we are slowly coming to the end of this interesting pure data and AI podcast on the topic, what is the influence of ethical AI on our life? And one last question is, it's very interesting question, I believe. What do you believe that maybe the consequences on society development if you don't tackle the issue of unethical use of AI?
Very interesting question, Alex. So when you talk about that, when you do not implement ethical AI, or when you do not put checks and balances, thing would be slowly people would stop trusting it, and the entire power or the essence of AI, which or the changes which AI can bring would get lost, right? So it's very, very important. It's as simple as that. If planes started to crash, people would stop using it. If AI becomes unethical, people would stop using it, right?
Yeah.
To make sure that you can harness the power of AI, you need to put checks and balances, make it ethical, and you'll see that usage of AI would increase many folds.
Yeah. And maybe if you can just, what you think that may be possible, not saying that it will be, but what could be one example of unethical use of AI that you're maybe the fear the most, for example, that you think, okay, if the AI is used for this, this could be very, very, very bad.
So see, I'll talk in today's time when you talk about COVID, and then there's a financial problem happening in the countries. If AI start to take wrong financial decision for human beings, be it financial loans, mortgages, or healthcare, or other thing, it will be really, really problematic. Because if you understand right now, if you apply for a loan or a business loan or some kind of some kind of help, financial help, and AI does not allow you to take it, that's very wrong. For example, some kind of healthcare where you call up a call center and ask for advice and it gives you a wrong advice, that would be a problem. Jobs right now, which are into problem. If you don't get job because of your race or ethnicity, that's again wrong, because these are life altering decisions.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. Basically, that you think that every use of AI, unethical AI that can divide people further, can be very dangerous. Yeah, I can relate on that. That basically on in the place where we are coming, like that putting like dispute between the people,
Yeah.
like on any kind of let's say differences, can be a very, very it can lead to very, very bad things. And basically it's, and the worst thing about it, it's not shown like on the day one, but on the day two, the day three, day seven, when people realize that they will be they were being let's say scam or something like that, it can cause a double negative effect. So basically,
Absolutely. Yeah. So anything. So in given times, it's finance, health, other thing. But in long run, anything which alters life, which creates something which you cannot go back and change, are very, very dangerous.
okay. uh, this comes to an end very quickly, I need to say. But I think that we have one. Okay, and it's parting. Okay, we have a cheers from Valentina. Thank you, Valentina. And I need to say that this comes to the end very quickly. I was super excited about it, and personally, I learned a lot of stuff, and I got a new perspectives also, like, which I think it's very important. And my question for everybody who will listen to this podcast after this podcast is published: what about you? If you think also that this was a very good for you, just leave us a comment or say something or write to us if you think that some topic you would like to see being published. For the end, I would like to thank Sray for being such a good podcast interview. I think that this will be excellent material for further popularization of ethical AI. For all of you, for the next podcast, Pure Podcast, it will be on July 21st. We will soon announce who will be the next speaker. We had already confirmed speaker, but he need to be changed for the 2 weeks after that because of his personal obligation. But the next topic of the Pure Podcast will be related to data and AI startups and what is behind it and how to start it. We think that is also very important to talk about that. Until July 21st, stay chill, my dear data lovers. And this is Linz out. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.